The morning sun cast long shadows across the private terminal at Los Angeles International Airport as Maya Richardson's dark blue Tesla Model S pulled into the parking lot. It was 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the 34-year-old CEO had deliberately chosen to arrive without her usual security detail or driver. Today was different. Today was about seeing her company through the eyes of a regular customer. Maya checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusting her navy blazer and ensuring her natural hair was neatly styled. She had built Richardson Aviation Holdings from the ground up over the past decade, turning it into a billion-dollar empire. Her recent acquisition of a majority stake in Elite Airways was her biggest move yet, but she knew that real success wasn't just about ownership, it was about understanding every aspect of the business. As she stepped out of her car, the cool California morning air carried the familiar scent of jet fuel. Maya grabbed her designer briefcase and carry-on luggage, both chosen to be professional yet understated. Inside her bag was a folder containing the documents that would reshape Elite Airways' future, waiting to be presented at today's board meeting in New York. Several other passengers were arriving at the terminal, mostly older white men in expensive suits, some accompanied by assistants carrying their bags. Maya observed how they were greeted with warm smiles and quick nods from the security staff. She had seen this scene play out countless times before, but today she was here as part of her secret shopper program, testing how Elite Airways treated its regular clients. Her phone buzzed with a message from her assistant, Sarah. Board members confirmed for 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget time difference. Maya smiled, remembering how Sarah had tried to convince her to take the company helicopter instead. Need to experience it like our customers do, she had insisted. Walking toward the terminal entrance, Maya mentally reviewed her presentation points. Elite Airways needed significant changes. Their customer satisfaction scores were dropping, and there were whispers about discriminatory practices. As majority shareholder, she had the power to implement sweeping reforms, but first, she needed to understand the problems firsthand. She passed a group of pilots doing their pre-flight checks, their uniforms crisp in the morning light. One of them glanced at her, then did a double take. He had probably seen her in the company newsletters. Maya put a finger to her lips with a slight smile, and the pilot nodded discreetly, understanding her wish to remain incognito. Inside her briefcase was more than just meeting documents. Maya carried years of experience dealing with prejudice in the aviation industry. As one of the few black female CEOs in the field, she had faced countless obstacles and assumptions. But she had learned to turn these challenges into opportunities for change. Her company's motto, Rising Above, wasn't just about flying. It was about elevating the entire industry's standards. The terminal's automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh. The interior was exactly as she had expected. Marble floors, leather seats, and a sleek check-in counter. What caught her attention, however, was the security station. Unlike the main terminal's chaos, private aviation security was supposed to be smooth and personalized. Maya had specifically chosen this flight to examine how Elite Airways handled its security procedures. She watched as a white businessman ahead of her was quickly waved through with a friendly "Have a good flight, sir." His credentials received only a cursory glance. Maya took mental notes. Efficiency was good, or were they being too lax with certain passengers while possibly over-scrutinizing others? Adjusting her designer handbag on her shoulder, Maya pulled out her first-class credentials and boarding pass. These were the standard documents any wealthy client would use, not her executive clearance or company ID. The true test would be how they treated her without knowing she owned the majority of the company. As she approached the security desk, Maya maintained her usual confident yet approachable demeanor. She had learned long ago that in this industry, presence mattered. Too confident, and people called you aggressive. Too passive, and they dismissed you entirely. She had mastered the perfect balance through years of navigating corporate America's complex social dynamics. Little did the morning staff know that their interaction with this seemingly regular passenger would become a turning point in Elite Airways history. Maya Richardson was about to experience firsthand why her company needed change, and the next few minutes would set in motion events that would transform not just Elite Airways, but the entire private aviation industry's approach to equality and service. Security Officer James Peterson stood at his post, scanning the morning crowd with what he considered a professional eye. He had worked at Elite Airways' private terminal for 5 years and took pride in what he called his sixth sense about passengers. When Maya Richardson approached his security station, that sense went on high alert. Peterson stepped forward, his hand raised in a stopping motion. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, emphasizing the word ma'am in a way that made it sound less than respectful. "I'll need to see additional identification." His eyes barely glanced at the first-class credentials and boarding pass Maya had already placed on the counter. Maya kept her expression neutral, though she noticed how the security officer's tone had changed from the friendly manner he had used with previous passengers. Of course, she replied calmly, reaching into her designer handbag. "What additional identification would you like to see?" "All of it," Peterson said, crossing his arms. "Driver's license, passport, and any membership cards you claim to have." He stressed the word claim, making his suspicion clear to everyone within earshot. Behind Maya, a line was beginning to form, but Peterson seemed unconcerned about the delay. As Maya produced her documents one by one, laying them carefully on the counter, she observed how other passengers were being processed at the second security station. A white businessman rushed through with just a quick flash of his boarding pass. An older white woman was welcomed with a smile and minimal document check. The contrast was impossible to miss. "These look." Peterson paused dramatically, holding Maya's passport up to the light. "Interesting." He turned to his colleague. "Hey, Mike, come take a look at these. Something seems off." His voice was loud enough to draw attention from nearby passengers, some of whom were now watching the scene unfold with uncomfortable expressions. Maya quietly pulled out her phone and began recording audio, keeping the device partially hidden in her hand. She also noted the time, 7:45 a.m. Every detail would matter later. "Is there a specific concern with my documentation?" she asked, her voice steady and professional. Peterson's face tightened at her composed question. "Ma'am, this is a private aviation terminal. Our clients are typically—" He paused, searching for words, "well known to us." The implication hung heavy in the air. Behind him, Mike shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. A young white couple walked past Maya's station toward the second security point. The woman glanced at Maya with embarrassment before quickly looking away. The security officer there greeted them warmly, checking their documents with a cursory glance. "Have a wonderful flight, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson." "I understand," Maya replied to Peterson, her voice clear and measured. "And I am a client of Elite Airways. Would you like to contact your supervisor to verify my credentials?" She knew every word and action was important. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about documenting a pattern. Peterson's radio was already in his hand. "This is Peterson at Main Security. I'm going to need a supervisor verification." He turned back to Maya. "You'll have to step aside while we sort this out." He gestured to a small waving area, clearly expecting her to move away from the counter. Instead, Maya stayed where she was, her posture relaxed but firm. "I'm happy to wait here while your supervisor arrives," she said. "I wouldn't want to lose my place in line." She noticed Peterson's jaw clench at her quiet refusal to be moved aside. More passengers were arriving, creating a bigger audience for the unfolding scene. Peterson seemed to grow more agitated with each passing moment, especially as people began to whisper among themselves. One businessman even pulled out his phone, apparently recording the interaction. "Listen," Peterson said, leaning forward and lowering his voice, "we have procedures here. Important people use this terminal. We can't just let anyone walk in because they bought a ticket and think they belong." Maya raised an eyebrow slightly at his choice of words. "I completely agree about the importance of security," she said. "That's why I'm happy to comply with all proper procedures. I simply expect them to be applied equally to all passengers." The sound of quick footsteps announced the arrival of the supervisor, Daniel Walsh, a man in his 50s with graying hair and a stern expression. He took in the scene, the growing crowd, the documents spread across the counter, Peterson's defensive stance, and Maya's calm demeanor. Little did Peterson know that his next actions and words would not only change his career, but would catalyze a major transformation in private aviation security protocols. The confrontation was about to take an unexpected turn that none of them could have anticipated. Supervisor Daniel Walsh adjusted his navy blue tie as he approached the security counter. His eyes darted between Peterson, Maya, and the growing crowd of onlookers. 20 years of handling airport security had taught him to spot trouble, but something about this situation felt different. What seems to be the problem here? Walsh asked, directing his question to Peterson rather than Maya. His voice carried the practiced tone of someone used to taking control of difficult situations. Peterson straightened his uniform. Sir, I have concerns about these credentials. He slid Maya's documents across the counter. They don't match our usual client profiles, and something feels off about them. Maya noticed how Walsh barely glanced at her before picking up her papers. She also noticed how he stood slightly closer to Peterson, creating a united front against her. Her phone continued recording in her hand, capturing every word. Ma'am, Walsh said, finally turning to Maya, you understand we have to be extremely careful about security in this terminal. Our clients expect a certain level of, he paused, searching for the right word, exclusivity. Behind them, the regular terminal operations continued. A group of white executives walked through the second security station, laughing and talking about their golf trip. They passed through with minimal security checks, their bags barely glanced at. I completely understand the need for security, Maya responded, her voice clear and professional. Perhaps you could explain which specific security concerns you have about my valid documentation. Walsh shifted uncomfortably. Maya's calm questioning was making it difficult to maintain the usual tactics of intimidation and delay. Peterson, growing more agitated, muttered under his breath, "These people always think they can just walk in anywhere these days." The comment wasn't quiet enough. Several nearby passengers looked up from their phones, and one woman gasped softly. Maya kept her expression neutral but made a mental note of the exact words and time, 8:05 a.m. Mr. Peterson, Maya said, addressing the guard directly, I'd appreciate if you could clarify who you mean by these people. Her question hung in the air like a thundercloud about to break. Walsh quickly stepped in. Let's stay focused on the security matter at hand. He turned to his computer terminal, making a show of typing something. We'll need to run an additional background check. This could take some time. Maya checked her watch. Her flight was scheduled for 8:30 a.m. I see, she said. And is this additional background check a standard procedure for all passengers, or only for certain ones? A young security officer named Sarah Chen, who had been watching from nearby, stepped forward. Sir, she addressed Walsh, I can verify that these are standard first-class credentials. They've passed all our usual security protocols. Walsh shot Chen a warning look, but she stood her ground. Peterson's face reddened as he turned to her. Nobody asked for your input, Chen. Go back to your post. Maya observed this interaction carefully, noting how the female officer was treated when she spoke up. More pieces of the larger problem were becoming clear with each passing minute. Mr. Walsh, Maya said, her voice carrying just enough authority to draw attention back to her, I believe we're approaching this incorrectly. Let's review the facts. I have provided all required documentation, which your system has verified as authentic. Your officer, Ms. Chen, has confirmed this. Yet we're still having this discussion. Why? The terminal had grown quieter as more people stopped to watch the scene unfold. Peterson's hands were clenched at his sides, his face a mix of anger and uncertainty. Walsh's professional mask was beginning to crack as he realized the situation was slipping out of his control. Look, Peterson burst out, we know what kind of people usually fly from this terminal. We can't be too careful when someone doesn't fit the usual profile. Maya raised an eyebrow. And what profile would that be, exactly? She asked, knowing his answer would be crucial. Before Peterson could respond, a sharp ring cut through the tension. Maya's phone displayed an incoming call from Board Chairman Stevens. She looked at the two men, then at her watch again. The next few moments would change everything at Elite Airways, but not in the way Peterson or Walsh expected. The situation had reached its boiling point, and the revelation that was about to unfold would send shockwaves through the entire private aviation industry. No one in the terminal realized they were witnessing a pivotal moment that would be discussed in corporate boardrooms for years to come. Maya's phone continued to ring, its sound cutting through the tense atmosphere of the terminal. Both Peterson and Walsh stared at the screen, which clearly displayed Board Chairman Stevens for all to see. Maya let it ring one more time, watching their expressions change. Excuse me, she said politely, but I should take this call. It's about today's board meeting. She pressed the speaker button, her voice clear and professional. Good morning, Chairman Stevens. Maya, the chairman's voice boomed through the phone speaker. Where are you? The New York team is worried you'll be late for the Elite Airways board meeting. As majority shareholder, you need to be there to vote on the new security protocols we discussed. The color drained from Peterson's face. Walsh's mouth fell open slightly. Around them, the terminal had gone completely silent. Even the passengers who had been pretending not to watch were now openly staring. I'm actually at the LAX private terminal right now, Chairman, Maya replied calmly. Having an interesting experience with our security team, Officers Peterson and Walsh have been she paused meaningfully, thorough in their screening process. Peterson and Walsh. Chairman Stevens's voice sharpened. Maya, aren't those the names from the discrimination complaints we were going to discuss today? Walsh's professional mask crumbled completely. Peterson took a step backward, bumping into the counter behind him. The security badge he'd been using to intimidate now seemed to weigh heavily on his chest. Yes, those are their names, Maya confirmed, still maintaining her composed demeanor. And I believe I now understand exactly why we received those complaints. She turned to face the two men directly. Gentlemen, I'm Maya Richardson, majority shareholder of Elite Airways and CEO of Richardson Aviation Holdings. The young officer, Sarah Chen, couldn't hide a small smile. Several passengers had their phones out, recording the moment. Someone in the back of the crowd whispered, "That's Maya Richardson, the billionaire?" Peterson opened and closed his mouth several times, no words coming out. Walsh attempted to recover, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. Miss Richardson, I cannot express how deeply sorry we are for this misunderstanding. Maya looked at his hand but didn't take it. This wasn't a misunderstanding, Mr. Walsh. This was a clear demonstration of the systemic issues in our security protocols. Or rather, the selective application of those protocols. Maya, Chairman Stevens spoke again through the phone. Do you want me to call security? A soft laugh rippled through the crowd at the irony of this question. Maya allowed herself a small smile. No need, Chairman. But I would like our HR director and legal team to join today's board meeting. I think we need to expand our agenda. Peterson finally found his voice. Miss Richardson, please, I have a family. This job is all I have. His previous arrogance had vanished, replaced by desperate fear. Maya raised her hand, silencing him. Officer Peterson, this isn't about punishment. This is about change. She turned to address the growing crowd of onlookers. What we've all witnessed here today is exactly why Elite Airways needs new leadership and new policies. She picked up her documents from the counter, organizing them neatly. Mr. Walsh, I expect a full report of this incident on my desk by tomorrow morning. Officer Chen, she nodded to the security officer who had spoken up. Thank you for your integrity. Expect a call from my office. Chairman Stevens cleared his throat through the phone. Maya, your flight crew has been notified. They're waiting for you. Thank you, Chairman, Maya replied. I'll see you in New York. She ended the call and placed her phone in her bag, then looked directly at Peterson and Walsh. Gentlemen, I believe we're done here. Unless you'd like to run any additional background checks. The silence in the terminal was deafening. Then, slowly, someone started to clap. Others joined in, the applause spreading through the crowd. Maya didn't acknowledge it, simply picking up her bags and walking toward the terminal gate with the same quiet confidence she had shown throughout the confrontation. Behind her, Walsh was already on his phone, likely calling his superiors. Peterson stood frozen, watching his career flash before his eyes. And Sarah Chen stood a little straighter at her post, knowing she had witnessed something that would change Elite Airways forever. The story of what happened that morning would spread quickly through the aviation industry, but the real changes were just beginning. Maya Richardson had gotten the evidence she needed, and the transformation of Elite Airways was about to take flight. Instead of heading directly to her flight, Maya Richardson took a seat in the terminal's private lounge. She opened her laptop and began to type, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. The morning's events needed to be documented while they were still fresh in her mind. Sarah Chen, the security officer who had spoken up earlier, approached Maya's table with careful steps. Ms. Richardson, she said softly, I have some information you might want to hear. Maya gestured to the chair across from her, and Sarah sat down. Officer Peterson has done this before, Sarah explained, her voice steady but quiet. "I've kept a private log of incidents over the past 8 months. Many passengers didn't file complaints because they were afraid of making trouble or missing their flights." Maya nodded, opening a new document. "Tell me everything you've seen, Sarah. Dates, times, specific incidents. Everything matters." As Sarah spoke, Maya typed quickly, documenting each case with precise detail. Across the terminal, other employees began approaching them one by one. A baggage handler shared how Peterson had always insisted on extra screening for certain passengers' luggage. A cleaning staff member described overhearing discriminatory comments during shift changes. A gate agent admitted to feeling helpless as she watched similar scenes play out month after month. "Why didn't anyone report this before?" Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. The gate agent, Maria, looked down at her hands. "Mr. Walsh made it clear that complaints would make things difficult for us. We all have families to support." Maya's phone buzzed continuously with messages from her legal team and HR department. She had sent them the audio recording from the confrontation, along with a brief summary of what happened. Their responses were immediate and unified. This was a watershed moment for Elite Airways. "Ms. Richardson," a new voice interrupted. It was Peterson's direct supervisor, Thomas Grant. "I need to explain my position in all this." His face showed the strain of someone who knew they had failed in their duties. Maya looked at him steadily. "Mr. Grant, please sit down." She opened another document. "I'm particularly interested in hearing about the training protocols you've been using for your security team." Grant's explanation revealed a system that had grown increasingly problematic over the years. Security training had become less about actual safety and more about maintaining what they called the elite atmosphere of the terminal. Cultural sensitivity training had been reduced to a brief online course that most officers clicked through without reading. As Maya listened and typed, she noticed Walsh watching from his office window. He was on the phone, likely trying to save his job. But Maya's focus wasn't on individual punishments. She was looking at the bigger picture, seeing how each piece of information revealed deeper problems in the company's culture. Sarah Chen returned with more documents, copies of shift reports, incident logs, and even some photographs taken by concerned employees. "We've been gathering evidence," she explained. "We just never had anyone powerful enough to show it to." Maya's phone rang again. This time it was her HR director, Jessica Torres. "Maya, we've already received calls from 3 other passengers who witnessed today's incident. They're offering to provide statements and recordings. This is bigger than we thought." "Good," Maya replied. "We need all the documentation we can get. But Jessica, this isn't about creating a scandal. This is about fixing a broken system." She looked around the terminal, watching as employees continued their daily tasks, now with an air of uncertainty about their future. Peterson appeared briefly at the far end of the terminal, clearing out his locker under supervision. His shoulders were slumped, his earlier arrogance replaced by defeat. Maya made a note in her document. "Mandatory retraining program, possibility for rehabilitation and education rather than immediate termination." The time was now 9:15 a.m. Maya's flight had been delayed to accommodate her impromptu fact-finding mission. Around her, a small stack of papers had grown, statements, logs, and photographs that would become the foundation for massive changes at Elite Airways. "Sarah," Maya called to the young officer who was still helping gather evidence. "How would you feel about leading a new security training program?" Sarah's eyes widened with surprise and hope. "I would be honored, Ms. Richardson." Maya smiled, making another note. "Promote those who stood up for what's right." The real work was just beginning, but sometimes the biggest changes started with the smallest moments of courage. The Elite Airways boardroom in New York fell silent as Maya Richardson finished presenting the morning's events. The large screen behind her showed photos, video clips, and audio recordings from the LAX terminal incident. Board members shifted uncomfortably in their leather chairs, some taking notes, others simply staring in disbelief. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya said, standing confidently at the head of the long table, "what happened this morning wasn't just about 1 or 2 racist employees. This is about a system that allowed discrimination to become normal practice." She clicked to the next slide, showing Sarah Chen's detailed log of incidents. Chairman Stevens cleared his throat. "Maya, this is disturbing, to say the least." But what exactly are you proposing? He glanced around at the other board members, all waiting for her response. Maya picked up a thick folder from the table. I've developed a complete overhaul plan. We're not just going to apologize and move on. We're going to transform Elite Airways into an industry leader for inclusive practices. She handed out copies of her proposal to each board member. The plan was detailed and practical, divided into clear sections. Immediate actions, 30-day goals, 90-day implementation, and long-term changes. First, Maya began, pointing to page 1. We're creating a new position. Chief of Diversity and Security Operations. Sarah Chen will lead this department, reporting directly to me. She's proven herself as someone who stands up for what's right. Several board members raised their eyebrows at promoting a junior officer so quickly, but Maya continued. Second, we're implementing mandatory bias training, but not the usual click-through online courses. We're bringing in experts for real, intensive training sessions. Every employee, from baggage handlers to board members, will participate. The HR director, Jessica Torres, who had flown in from Los Angeles, stood up to support Maya's presentation. We'd already received calls from major news outlets about this morning's incident. But instead of trying to hide it, we can use this moment to show real leadership. Maya nodded and switched to the next slide. Third, we're establishing clear reporting procedures for discrimination. No more fear of retaliation. No more brushing incidents under the rug. Every complaint will be investigated thoroughly. One of the older board members, Richard Cooper, raised his hand. This will be expensive, Maya, our shareholders. I am the majority shareholder, Maya interrupted firmly. And I believe protecting human dignity is worth every penny. Besides, she clicked to a graph showing customer satisfaction trends. Our reputation has been suffering. This isn't just the right thing to do, it's good business. The room buzzed with quiet discussions as board members reviewed the proposal. Maya watched them, remembering Peterson's face when he realized who she was. She didn't want revenge, she wanted change. What about Peterson and Walsh? Another board member asked. Surely they'll be terminated immediately? Maya shook her head. No, they'll be suspended without pay and given a choice. Either leave the company or go through our new training program and work under Sarah Chen's supervision. We're not just punishing people, we're offering a chance for education and growth. The bold approach surprised many in the room. Maya could see them struggling with this new way of thinking about corporate responsibility. She clicked to the final slide, showing the proposed new company slogan, Elite Airways, where everyone soars. We have a choice, Maya said, her voice carrying across the quiet room. We can treat this as a PR crisis to manage, or we can use it as an opportunity to become better. I'm choosing the latter. Chairman Stevens stood up slowly. I think we need to vote on this. He looked around the room. All in favor of implementing Ms. Richardson's complete proposal, raise your hand. Hands began to rise. First Jessica Torres, then a few younger board members. More followed, until finally, even Richard Cooper raised his hand. The vote was unanimous. Maya smiled, but her face remained serious. Thank you. Now the real work begins. I want the first training session scheduled within 48 hours. Sarah Chen is already preparing the new security protocols, and our PR team will release a statement tonight about our commitment to change. As the board members gathered their things, talking excitedly about the new direction, Maya checked her phone. There was a message from Sarah. Security team already volunteering for first training session. Change is happening. The incident that began as discrimination was transforming into something powerful, a moment of real corporate evolution. Maya Richardson had turned an ugly moment into an opportunity for growth, and Elite Airways would never be the same. 3 months after the incident at LAX, Maya Richardson stood in the same terminal where everything had started. The physical space looked the same, marble floors, leather seats, sleek counters, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Sarah Chen, now Chief of Diversity and Security Operations, walked beside Maya as they conducted their weekly inspection. She wore a new uniform designed specifically for her role, with a badge that read CDSO in gold letters. The numbers are impressive, Sarah reported, showing Maya her tablet. Customer complaints about discrimination are down 95%. Employee satisfaction is up 60%, and our security screening times are actually faster, even with the new thorough protocols. They stopped to watch the morning security check process. The staff worked with professional efficiency, treating each passenger with the same level of respect and care. Clear signs in multiple languages explained the security procedures, and a QR code allowed passengers to instantly report any concerns. Officer Thompson, Sarah called to a security guard. "Would you show Ms. Richardson how the new screening system works?" The guard, a young man who had joined after the changes, smiled and stepped forward. "Yes, ma'am," he said proudly. "Every passenger goes through the same checklist. No exceptions, no shortcuts, no bias. We document everything on our new tablets, and the AI system flags any patterns that might show unfair treatment." Maya nodded approvingly. The new technology had been expensive, but it was working exactly as intended. Every security check was now recorded, logged, and reviewed regularly for quality control. At the far end of the terminal, Maya spotted a familiar face, James Peterson. After the incident, he had surprised everyone by choosing to stay and complete the intensive training program. Now he worked as part of Sarah's team, helping to train new employees about the importance of fair treatment. "Peterson has become one of our best advocates for change," Sarah said, following Maya's gaze. "He speaks at every training session, sharing his story of how he confronted his own biases. It's powerful stuff." They walked to the break room, which had been transformed into a learning center. The walls displayed photos of diverse aviation pioneers and quotes about equality. A large screen showed real-time customer feedback scores, and a digital board listed the day's training sessions. "Today's special session is interesting," Sarah pointed out. "Peterson and Walsh are leading a workshop on recognizing and overcoming unconscious bias. Can you believe it?" Maya smiled. Daniel Walsh had also chosen to stay, though it had taken him longer to accept the new way of doing things. Now, both men worked tirelessly to help other employees understand why the changes were so important. The terminal's staff lounge had also been updated. A new Speak Up wall allowed employees to anonymously share concerns or suggestions. Regular team meetings ensured everyone's voice was heard, and a rotating committee of employees helped make decisions about workplace policies. "The best part," Sarah said, showing Maya another report, "is that other airlines are starting to notice. We've had requests from 3 major carriers to share our training program. Elite Airways is becoming a model for the industry." Maya checked her watch. Almost time for the monthly all-staff meeting. As they walked to the conference room, employees greeted them warmly. There was none of the fear or tension that used to fill the terminal. The conference room was packed. Everyone from baggage handlers to pilots attended these meetings now. On the walls hung photos from recent company events, charity fundraisers, community outreach programs, and team-building activities that brought people together across all departments. 3 months ago, Maya began her address to the staff. This terminal was a place of division. Today, it's a place of unity. But our work isn't finished. She clicked to the first slide of her presentation, showing their goals for the next quarter. "We're expanding our training program to all Elite Airways locations worldwide. We're launching a scholarship program for underrepresented groups in aviation, and we're creating a new employee exchange program to build understanding between different terminals." The room burst into applause. Maya saw genuine enthusiasm on the faces around her. These weren't just corporate changes, they were cultural transformations that people believed in. As the meeting continued, Maya received a text from Chairman Stevens. "Passenger satisfaction at all-time high. Board wants to roll out your program industry-wide. You've started something big." Maya looked around the room, remembering the tense confrontation that had started it all. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best changes. Elite Airways wasn't just flying planes anymore, it was soaring toward a better future. 1 year had passed since the morning that changed Elite Airways forever. Maya Richardson stood on stage at the National Aviation Industry Conference, preparing to give the keynote speech. The huge audience included executives from every major airline, government officials, and aviation industry leaders from around the world. Behind her, a large screen showed the Elite Airways logo with its new slogan, "Where everyone soars." The company had become famous over the past year, not just for its excellent service, but for leading the way in creating an inclusive aviation industry. 1 year ago, Maya began, her voice clear and strong. I walked into my own company's terminal and experienced discrimination firsthand. Today, I'm here to share how that difficult moment transformed not just Elite Airways, but sparked a movement across the entire aviation industry. She clicked to the first slide, showing Sarah Chen accepting an award for her innovative security protocols. The former junior officer had become one of the most respected figures in aviation security, with her training program now being used by airports worldwide. Change isn't just about new rules, Maya continued. It's about changing hearts and minds. And sometimes, the people who resist change the most become its strongest champions. The screen showed James Peterson speaking at a training session, sharing his story with new employees. Peterson had become an unexpected hero in Elite Airways' transformation. His honest discussions about confronting his own biases had helped countless others understand the importance of fair treatment. He now traveled to different airports, sharing his experience and helping other security teams improve their practices. In the front row, Chairman Stevens nodded proudly. Elite Airways' stock price had doubled over the past year. It turned out that doing the right thing was also good for business. The company had won numerous awards for its inclusive practices, and customer loyalty was at an all-time high. But the real success isn't in the numbers, Maya said, switching to a slide showing candid photos from various terminals. It's in the daily moments of human dignity. It's in the smile of a passenger who feels respected, the confidence of an employee who feels valued, the strength of a community that stands together. The photos showed diverse groups of employees and passengers interacting naturally and warmly. The tense atmosphere of the old days had been replaced by genuine welcome and professional respect. Elite Airways terminals had become known as places where everyone truly was treated equally. Daniel Walsh, who had also chosen to stay with the company, now ran a department focused on employee development. His office door was always open, and he had become known for mentoring young employees from all backgrounds. The man who once defended discriminatory practices now fought tirelessly for equality. Our transformation wasn't easy, Maya acknowledged. We had to confront uncomfortable truths. We had to admit mistakes. We had to be willing to learn and change. But look at the results. She gestured to a group of Elite Airways employees in the audience, representing every level of the company. The screen showed clips from their new training videos, which have become industry standards. Airlines around the world now sent their staff to Elite Airways for training. The company had created a certification program that was considered the gold standard for aviation security and customer service. Today, I'm proud to announce our next step, Maya revealed. Elite Airways is establishing the Aviation Equality Foundation. We're committing $50 million to help other airlines and airports implement similar changes, because this isn't just about one company, it's about transforming an entire industry. The audience burst into applause. In the back of the room, Sarah Chen smiled proudly. She would be leading the new foundation, bringing her expertise to airports around the world. 1 year ago, I could have simply fired 2 employees and considered the problem solved, Maya said as she concluded her speech. Instead, we chose to dig deeper, to understand the root causes, and to create real, lasting change. The screen showed a final image, a split screen of the LX terminal 1 year ago and today. The physical space looked similar, but the people in it told a different story. Diverse groups of employees worked together confidently, passengers moved through security smoothly, and the whole atmosphere radiated professional respect. This is what transformation looks like, Maya said, her voice filled with quiet pride. Not just new policies, but new perspectives. Not just rules, but relationships. Not just changes in behavior, but changes in hearts and minds. As the audience rose in a standing ovation, Maya thought about that morning 1 year ago. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best changes. Elite Airways hadn't just fixed a problem. It had started a revolution in how the aviation industry thought about equality, dignity, and human respect.